but it didn't feel right. Maybe the alligators were close enough to him on the DNA spectrum, but no matter how much vodka he consumed, Vern could not drink himself into believing that he wouldn't be taking advantage of a dumber species. Not to mention the fact that gators had no personalities to speak of and were uglier than the ass end of a coyote. They were cold-blooded. He had a molten core. It was never going to work out. Vern spent his nights in a fishing shack on Boar Island, which had been abandoned sometime in the middle of the last century. The shack sat back from the shore on a little side bayou and was being slowly crushed by the curling fingers of a mangrove fist. But it would do for now, and Vern had set it up pretty nice, with a generator and some of the basics. He had himself a little refrigerator to keep his Absolut chilling, and a TV with a bunch of cable. Waxman up the bayou had set up a supply line to the outside world, so Vern could keep himself occupied during his nocturnal hours. It was all about survival, and survival was all about profile, or the total lack of one. Absolute zero. No credit cards or cell phone, no trips to Petit Bateau, and no online presence. Vern had set himself up a social media account a while back, cobbled together a fake persona, calling himself Draco Smog, which he thought was pretty cute. But then Facebook started adding location services, and some Lord of the Rings fanatics began asking probing questions, so Vern shut it down. Lesson learned. From then on, he contented himself with reality shows and surfing the net. All the information Vern needed was out there. He just had to find it. But no one could find him. Ever. Because whenever humans found him, to paraphrase Maximus Decimus Meridius, hell was most definitely unleashed. And Vern carried hell around inside him so he could survive it. But the human who found him would not. Squib used to have a daddy, and back in those days his daddy said things along the lines of, "Don't you go sneaking dollars out of my pocket, Squib, or I'll tan your hide." And, "You seen my beer, boy? You better not be sipping on my bud, Squib, or I'll tan your hide." Or, "How come you ain't minding your business, Squib? You heard about the curious cat, right? That cat got its hide tanned and then some." It didn't take Squib long to figure out that Daddy's sayings usually ended up with someone's hide getting tanned, and generally that hide was his. Squib reckoned it was probably mostly his own fault, as he did have a little trouble keeping his nose out of other people's business. "It's a free country," he reasoned in his defense, "so everyone's business is my business." But then his daddy left on Squib's 13th birthday, as apparently buying a gift card for his kid was more responsibility than he cared for, and none of his talk mattered much anymore. And in actual fact, that daddy wasn't even Squib's real daddy, no matter how much Squib conned himself that he was. Waxman, who lived on a houseboat across the river, said that Squib's real daddy had found this world a bit too much for him, and this guy was just some freeloader who turned up when Squib wasn't much more than a rugrat, and his sainted mother was a mess. This replacement papa was nothing but a goddamn fool, who was always shooting his mouth off, as Waxman told it. Prison jabber that he most likely picked up in Angola or some other state farm, judging by the ink crawling up out of the neck hole of his T-shirt. "You and the Lodi are better off without that no-account loser," he told Squib when the boy delivered his groceries. "Most he can read is off cigarette cartons. You're taking advantage of your mama's kind nature, is what he was doing." Mostly Waxman was full of bullshit swamp wisdom, but this time he hit the nail on the head, especially where a Lodi was concerned. Squib's mama surely did have a kind nature, nursing folks like she did all hours for $2 above minimum wage, then coming home to his delinquent ass. Squib was overly familiar with that particular term, delinquent, being that it was read to him off a report card or charge sheet often enough. Sometimes he thought he should dial it down a notch, the bad boy act, for his mama's sake, because he loved her so much that it made him furious at all the assholes who had broken her heart. His own original papa, who had checked himself out when he had folks who relied on him, and then fake daddy, who left when he had sucked Elodie's heart dry, like he was some kind of vampire, but with a taste for love instead of blood. So Squib tried to rein himself in, but it never took. Squib could allow that he missed having a daddy, even a fake one, so long as he kept that thought inside his own head, even if that daddy did drink beer like it was keeping him alive instead of the opposite. Even if he did raid Mama's coffee